Welcome in to Outkick the Show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope you guys are having fantastic Wednesdays wherever you may be. Outkick the Show is brought to you by Oddshark. Go to Oddshark for all your gambling and informational related needs. And remember as well, right now, oh no, I thought I had the ad up ready to read. I'm going to have to scroll through and tell you all about it. Tell you all about my friends at good old, hold on a second. It's coming, I promise. Uh-oh, I might have lost it. Well, right now, if you go to alumnihall.com, you can get 10% off all your gear if you use the phrase Outkick, O-U-T-K-I-C-K, as well. Right now, they are the proud sponsor of Outkick's Top 10. They have all your best selection of top brands like Nike, Under Armour, Columbia, and more. You're sure to find everything you need for you and your entire game day crew to support your favorite team. For a limited time only, receive 10% off and free shipping on your order with the code OUTKICK. That's at alumnihall.com. And check out alumnihall.com. Use the code OUTKICK. Also, my friends, as always, if you need a mortgage, go to thehomeloanexpert.com, thehomeloanexpert.com. Right now, you can get pre-qualified. You can get a brand new refi. You can get a rate in the 2%. Get hooked up now by going to thehomeloanexpert.com. All right, we got a lot to dive into. Rick Pitino and Tom Jurich are out at Louisville. We're going to talk about NFL fans lining up and canceling their subscriptions to NFL Sunday Ticket over their frustration with the protests over the past weekend, and I'll give you an update on my Tennessee Senate campaign. But we began with the biggest scandal du jour, the biggest scandal to hit college athletics in some time. Rick Pitino has been fired at Louisville. Tom Jurich, the once untouchable athletic director at Louisville, is also out. Here is the important thing if you are a college football fan. In Bobby Petrino's contract, his buyout just dropped to $4.25 million. So if you're out there and you're thinking, man, we need a new coach, Bobby Petrino can now be yours for the small price of $4.25 million buyout, which is not that expensive. Not that expensive, really, because all you would have to do is add, let's say you sign him to a 5-year deal, you add an extra $750 to that compensation every year, you pay the buyout up front, and you, my friends, are sitting there with a big-time coaching candidate. Whether you're Tennessee, Auburn, Texas A&M, Missouri. Can you imagine if Petrino went back to Missouri? There are lots of places out there. Only a $4.25 million buyout. That is very, very affordable. The buyout before the firing of Tom Jurich was $8.5 million. So if you were in the market to get Bobby Petrino, that was an $8.5 million buyout that became a $4.25 million buyout right now, which is pretty wild to have that much of a value. So that in his contract is written that if Tom Jurich is not the AD, his buyout is cut in half. So that is Bobby Petrino's buyout. Assuming that Lamar Jackson might be going pro, I think it's highly likely that Bobby Petrino might leave Louisville, considering he doesn't have his former boss there anymore, and that obviously Rick Pitino is out. It's a sign of where Louisville athletics is, that Bobby Petrino is now the moral authority at the top of the Louisville athletics pyramid. Who is going to be next? You've got Arizona under fire. You have got USC under fire. You've got Auburn under fire, and you have Oklahoma State under fire. Here's my big takeaway in general. First, I don't know who's surprised by this news. The idea that all of these athletic companies had been funneling money was known forever. And by the way, the report is that the funneling of money investigation has now expanded to include Nike and also Adidas. So all I would say is this. If you are a major athletic program that has been getting a lot of big-time basketball recruits, do not gloat over the failures of what's going on right now. Like, there are a lot of Kentucky fans around right now loving the fact that Rick Pitino got fired. Let me ask you this. Do you think that Rick Pitino suddenly started cheating when he got to Louisville? Do you think that when Rick Pitino was at Kentucky, signing all those big-time recruits, that this was the first time that he suddenly decided to turn to the dark side, that he began to recruit in a negative fashion and an illegal fashion once he got to Louisville. Get out of here. The guy's been running the same game plan the whole time, just like John Calipari is. So there are some Kentucky fans out there that want to bury their head in the sand, and they want to be like, hey, we've been signing five-star recruits every year for the past decade, and they all came to Kentucky just because they love horse racing and how awesome Rupp Arena is. Get your head out of the sand. This was how the game was being played. Players were being paid. And I don't even have an issue with it, right? I have moved in this. I told you yesterday, I said this morning on the show, people sometimes ask, have you ever had your opinion change substantially on an issue? I'll be honest with you. My opinion has changed here. And I think for me, my opinion really crystallized when it came to Marcus Lattimore. I point to him as a signifying event for me. When Marcus Lattimore, and I've said this story a lot, but I was at Florida Field watching Marcus Lattimore carry the ball 40 times for over 200 yards when he put South Carolina into the SEC title game. And I said at that point in time, Marcus Lattimore is ready to go pro. Marcus Lattimore is beyond a shadow of a doubt ready to be a first-round draft pick. But he had to come back for his sophomore year, and he tore up his knee. And then he came back for his junior year, and he tore up his other knee. And he never played it down in the NFL, and he never made $1, really, as an NFL player. And now, Marcus Lattimore might well have had that happen. Even if he had had the opportunity to go pro, he might have decided to come back and play at Kentucky for his at South Carolina for his sophomore and his junior year. But to me, at that point in time, when I saw his double injury, it crystallized for me the idea that we need to give players the opportunity to go pro. And so I have become, over the ensuing years, and I don't know, you guys can look it up, was Marcus Lattimore 2012 and 2013 playing at South Carolina? I believe that's the years. I believe he was for 2011, 2012. I'm not sure exactly when he was there. But for me, that is when 2011 and 2012. After 2012 was when I really started to change here. And my opinion's changed. And frankly, I have moved. I initially bought into the idea of the NCAA as needing to be there to keep everybody from signing players, from paying players. And then every now and then, I like to go back in time and think, okay, why do I have the opinion that I have, right? I think if you don't do this regularly, I think you're not growing as a person. It's important to always rigorously examine the opinions that you hold and make sure that you're not having that opinion just because you've always had that opinion. I change my opinions constantly, right? People sometimes rip me for this. I'll go on, to me, every game and every season is a new data point. And I'm open to arguments. If you want to sit me down and try to make an argument, sometimes we have this conversation with my wife because my wife's really smart. And I'm the kind of guy who, when I have an opinion, I will go out and I'll seek out the opposite opinion. So, like, my wife is here right now, and I ask her opinion on so many different things every day, right? Sometimes big issues, sometimes small issues. And she gets upset because if you're married and you ask your wife's opinion and then you don't take her advice, she's like, why did you even ask my opinion? And my position is, I want to talk to as many smart people as I actually can to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And then, to steal a line from Davy Crockett, I can be confident in my opinion. He used to say, be sure you're right, then go ahead. I'm sure in my head that I have considered every possible angle of an argument. By the time that I make it, it's very unlikely that someone else is going to be able to come up with an argument that I haven't considered. Now, I might make a bad decision, like when I tried to sell pants and they bombed, but I at least have considered every angle of an issue, and I'm sure that I'm right, and I'm going to go ahead. Sometimes I end up being wrong, okay? That's sometimes happens, right? But in general, I tend to be right more often than I'm wrong. And that's because I consult other people with intelligent opinions to find out what arguments are out there, all right? And so that's what's going on right now with me, by the way, with the Senate. I'll give you an update at the end on the Tennessee Senate campaign, but we have retained top campaign finance attorneys. We are reviewing all of the statutes in Tennessee. I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to have to start blocking people. And by the way, if I happen to see that you're being a cunt, you're gone. All right. So, I'm just going to have to wipe out people right now. Just going to have to absolutely wipe out people right now and stop my argument to let you know that at any moment you can die. At any moment you can die, and you never know who's going to get killed. That's the truth. If you are coming on here and you're being a cunt, and I see your comments, and I think, man, that seems like the kind of thing that a pussy would type, you don't deserve the right to comment. You should be gone forever. This is not a safe space. This is not even a democracy. This is a clayocracy. And if I see you and I think, man, that guy's acting like a cunt, you're gone. I don't have room to, I don't even read most of the comments. But if I happen to actually look over and I see, man, you know what? I recognize that name, and that person's being a pussy. Guess what? You're gone. You're out of here forever. You don't deserve the right to comment. So, back on the issue. Yeah, Aaron Hernandez gone forever. You guys should try to be entertaining. The goal of the commenters should be to be entertaining, not to just come in here and say boring ass stuff. All right? So when I ask for your questions, I'll come look at the questions. But if I happen to look over and I see somebody and I think, man, you guys look like cunts, you're gone. All right? So here is the question. All right? Here is the question. So I ask all the time. So we're in the process of retaining all of these top experts to figure out whether or not I'm going to run for the Senate. And there are a lot of things that I have to figure out. For instance, whether or not I am going to be able to continue to do periscopes and Facebook Lives throughout the campaign. Does this violate Federal Election Commission records? And can they even figure out whether it does? How much money is it going to cost me to have to give up my radio show? Can I go from making several $1 million a year to making $170,000 a year for 6 years? Will my wife divorce me when I get elected to the Senate and I only make $170,000? So all of those things are under discussion right now, as well as we wait to see whether or not Peyton Manning is going to be there. I mean, I think probably the smart move is for me to just keep banking lots of money until I get so filthy rich that I don't need to make any more dollars. But there are lots of considerations to handle. I got a beach house. I got a house here. Do I have to buy a house in Washington, D.C. too? How much is all that going to cost me? So lots of decisions to make, but I'm doing my due diligence. I'm talking to lots of smart people in the state, having conversations all day. That's what's actually going on. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But I bring all that around because if you do all these conversations, you find out that college basketball has been corrupt for a long time. And this FBI investigation, I don't really understand what they're trying to prove. I don't really understand what the FBI is trying to prove here. They're trying to prove that poor people got money to pay to play college athletics. Again, this is something that I've evolved on. I don't care. The idea of an improper benefit is a lie that has been sold to us by the NCAA. It's a phrase that doesn't exist. You get paid for your labor, okay? You get paid for your labor. I'm a capitalist. I believe that every single person watching and listening to this show right now should sell his or her labor for as much as they possibly can, okay? Get as much money as you can, as much money as you could possibly deserve, okay? And if you do that, then capitalism triumphs. The purpose of capitalism, why it works, is because if everybody tries to make as much as they can, it lifts the overall standard of living of everyone. I am a capitalist, okay? So I believe in that thoroughly. Why would I not be a capitalist for college athletics? Why would I suddenly agree that it makes sense to socialize everything when it comes to college athletics? If you are a fiscal conservative, if you are a markets guy, if you believe in business, then you should be disgusted by everything that you see from the NCAA. That, to me, is utterly insane. I believe in markets. And so why are we surprised that a black market would develop when there are all these young kids out there that have extreme multi-million-dollar values and they aren't allowed to go pro? So there are several angles here that I don't think get discussed enough. First, one of the problems that college has is that there's an age restriction now in the NFL, and also that there's an age restriction in the NBA. You should be able to go pro at 18 years old at whatever age you want to in my personal opinion. Okay? I think it's a strange element of paternalism that has taken root, where everybody sits around and says, oh, you need to get your education first. What happens if you actually end up not being a star in the NBA or the NFL? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. Are these same people walking around military recruiting offices asking 18-year-olds why they're signing up to join the Marines so they can get shipped overseas and walk around with a gun and get shot at in Afghanistan and Iraq? If you are 18 years old, you are able to take a risk to see whether or not you're going to be a success, a tremendous success in that particular field. Were there people running around when Mark Zuckerberg at 19 years old decided to drop out of college and start Facebook? Probably. People saying, oh, you need to go get your education. Well, what if you are a transcendent superstar? We don't ask Taylor Swift to go sing in the Vanderbilt chorus. We don't ask, certainly, anybody like Leonardo DiCaprio to go star in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at USC. If you have the ability at 18 years old to make a living at a high level, then you should be able to go pro at any age. Jordan Spieth can go pro in golf. Anybody can go pro in baseball. Anybody can go pro in the NHL, in swimming, in soccer. Why should you not be able to go pro at 18 years old in the NBA and also in the NFL? Now, the next step, people will always say, well, there's no 18-year-old who's ready to play in the NFL. Okay, that's for the NFL to decide and for the 18-year-old to decide. If you ask Marcus Lattimore, would you rather come back and get the crap kicked out of you and the SEC for 2 years and never become a pro again, or go be a pro at the NFL and take your risks and bank a couple of $1 million? That's the play, honestly. I don't get into paternalism. I'm paternal for my kids. I will sit down and give them advice. I'm not going to be paternal for other athletes. Oh, you should come back for another year and increase your status. You can make millions of dollars right now. Go pro. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back and get an education. Moreover, a lot of you are assuming that these guys are getting educations in college. Look at the number of guys who go to take the Combine Wonderlic test at the NFL Combine after being eligible for 4 and 5 years and basically can't read. College athletics is a cesspool, okay? It's fraudulent on every level. Players get paid. Guys frequently can't do any of the work. I personally am more insulted that guys get scholarships to college and don't do any of their work than I am by the fact that guys get paid once they get there, right? Everybody focuses on UNC. Do you think one of the nation's top academic schools in UNC is cheating in academics and every other school is not? Get the fuck out of here. Every school is cheating its ass off to keep its top athletes eligible. Look at the Wonderlic scores. You think if UNC is doing it, that Ole Miss isn't? Get the fuck out of here. I mean, do people actually believe this? You think that if UNC is cheating to keep its kids eligible by putting them in crap classes that are easy to pass, that Kentucky and Ohio State and Florida and Arizona State aren't? You think UNC, one of the top academic institutions in the country, is cheating and other schools aren't? I'll tell you this story. My wife was a TA at Vanderbilt. That doesn't mean she had great tits and ass, although she did. She was a TA at Vanderbilt. I was also a TA. I have great tits and ass too. I was a TA at Vanderbilt. All right, I was a professor at Vanderbilt back when I was like 27 years old. My wife also was. We both got graduate degrees from Vanderbilt. My wife had a student in her class that was on the football team. When he took the quiz, he didn't answer a single question. He just wrote his name and his football jersey number at the top of the test. Okay? This is at Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt has guys taking tests and not writing an answer to a single question and just writing his name and jersey number at the top of the test, how many people out there think that isn't happening at other schools in the SEC? If Vanderbilt is letting in kids who were writing only their name and their jersey number at the top of a test. Are you really telling me that that's not happening at Tennessee and that's not happening at Ole Miss? College athletics is a cesspool. Doesn't mean you can't love it, but the idea that these guys are student athletes is a joke. The idea that they are not getting paid if they are top athletes is a joke too. Why did this happen? This happened because the NBA and the NFL realized they could use college athletics as a free minor league. And instead of having to develop 18-year-olds themselves, they could send them off to college, right? They could send them off to college, get all the tape they needed from their games, get them socialized a little bit, have them learn what it's like to live on their own, and then be able to make fewer mistakes when it comes to drafting players, right? Instead of trying to figure out, like they do in soccer right now, which 18-year-olds are going to end up being superstars, and you have to create an entire minor league system like they do for baseball and hockey, the NBA and the NFL realized they could get a free ride off of college athletics. And so they took advantage of it. And then at some point in time, all of these college athletics decided that they had to so desperately win because winning meant more money that they didn't care whether the students actually did the work, and they would pay to get the students to come because if you have the right players, you win. And so this idea that somehow the FBI has uncovered something that everybody else already didn't know is one of the most laughable concepts that I've ever heard. This is what happens in college athletics. You can love it, and I do, and you can not care if the players are paid, and I don't. And the thing that I actually am bothered by, honestly, is the fact that we have all these guys who can't do the work that are going to college. Because I think everybody would love college football, for instance, the same amount if it was like 20% worse, right? If every team was 20% worse, but you got all kids who could do the work going to college, I think that would be fantastic, right? And I don't think it would hurt the overall NFL product at all. And for the 20% that are going to college that have no business being there, give them an opportunity to try to go pro in the NFL. And my consensus on this is the 20% that have no business being on a college campus are the 20% that are typically committing crimes while they're there. In other words, the less prepared you are academically to be a member of a team on a college campus, the more likely you are to commit actual crimes when you're there. And I keep waiting for the big scandal to happen in college athletics where people just start to ask the question, like at Baylor. If you're a dad and you're sending your daughter to Baylor, is it really worth it to you to beat Oklahoma if you worry about your daughter getting raped by football players? Like, I don't know how people aren't making those decisions right now. Really? It's so desperately important for you to beat a rival school in college athletics that you're willing to send your daughter to a campus where she is in serious danger because of the athletics programs? Because that's what's happening now. You look at where the danger comes from, it's frequently guys who had no business ever being admitted to a college campus. I don't have a daughter, but I can't imagine making that decision. And I think we're close. There's going to be one major blow-up, and I don't know what it's going to be, but somebody's going to admit a player, and that player is going to have so many red flags, and he's going to take a gun into the student cafeteria, and he's going to shoot like 15 people. Something like that's going to happen. Just mark my words. In the next 20 years, something like that will happen, and football recruiting will change overnight. Because people will say, wait a minute, why did they ever admit this guy? Why did they ever allow this guy to come on campus and just take advantage and kill, maybe even, some of our students here? College campuses have a duty to keep people safe, and I think that's going to happen. It takes a lot of times a really explosive incident for people to re-examine the existing structures. And I think people will say, why in the world did this happen? How did we allow this? I think a lot of people are asking those questions around Baylor. I think there certainly were questions asked about Penn State, but I think there will be an incident like that happens. Just mark my words, sometime in the next 20 years, that will happen. And we'll see what the fallout is going to be, and I think it'll be substantial. And moreover, I think also then you'll see coaches and ADs not take risks on players like that. Like when Mississippi State signed, what's the guy's name who beat up the girl on tape? What's the guy's name? Like the Mississippi State player, the defensive tackle who was on video beating up the girl. Was it Simmons? Yeah, the Mississippi State player. Simmons, I think. Jeffrey Simmons, right? Jeffrey Simmons. I said at the time, I said, does Dan Mullen understand the risk that he took when he signed Jeffrey Simmons? Maybe that guy gets to campus and he becomes a perfect kid, right? Maybe he never does anything wrong. But if he beats up a girl on campus, Dan Mullen loses his job. That's going to happen, right? Dan Mullen is going to lose his job if the guy who beat up a girl already on tape comes to Mississippi State and beats up another girl. Is that a risk-reward worth taking if you are Dan Mullen? No way in hell. You may think that he's an incredible player, but there is no way that you take that risk to put your $5 million a year job on the line for an 18 or 19-year-old who has already proven he has the bad decision-making to beat up a girl on camera. If that happened again, I'm not lying about this. If that happened again on Mississippi State's campus, Dan Mullen would get fired. So I'm all about risk-reward. Make sure that if you're taking a risk, the reward justifies it. I don't think, for instance, with a guy like Jeffrey Simmons, it does. All right, let's pivot a little bit here. I don't know what the fallout's going to be. I don't know if Bruce Pearl's going to lose his job. I don't know if Sean Miller loses his job. I don't know where this ends. But I think it's going to be a total mess as we go forward because I think it's going to implicate just about every team. If you are a Kentucky basketball fan and today you're rejoicing because Rick Pitino got fired, you are an idiot. Whatever Louisville was doing, John Calipari was doing too. Whatever Sean Miller was doing, John Calipari was doing too, right? Every major basketball program in the country that brings in a lot of different people, okay, is going to be facing the same kind of issues, I believe. All right. Let's go. If you had really good players, have you seen this story? There is a pretty fascinating story out there right now. NFL fans are angry. And I'm not sure, I'm going to talk about this some tomorrow. I'm not sure that the NFL is aware of how in danger it is of getting Dixie chicked. All right? I'm not sure how much, whether there is any issue here. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible that the NFL gets Dixie chicked out here. And what do I mean by that? The Dixie Chicks went overseas and they ridiculed George W. Bush. All right? And as a result, when they ridiculed George W. Bush, their business collapsed because the Dixie Chicks' audience was conservative. And when they went overseas and ripped George W. Bush, their career ended. Okay? They didn't realize how committed their audience was to George W. Bush. So as a result, when you actually think about it, the NFL audience is conservative. People don't understand that who don't spend much time thinking about it. But if you walk into a NFL football stadium or a college football stadium, odds are the vast majority of the fans there voted for Donald Trump. What you have is a profound disconnect between the politics of the talent, i.e. the players, just like the Dixie Chicks, and the difference between the talent on the football field, i.e. the players, and the audience that pays their salary. And so when you think about it, this is a potential disaster. Because right now, fans are starting to call up and cancel NFL Sunday Ticket. And people say, oh, they're being snowflakes. No, they're not. No, they're not. If you believe that the players have the right to protest, then certainly the fans have the right to fire back at them and exercise their own First Amendment rights by canceling and not buying NFL-related products, not watching, right? What people don't understand about the First Amendment is when you speak, it doesn't mean that you have freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequence. All right? So when people see you kneeling and they are upset, they have the right to fire back at you and take shots at you. And as a result, that's what's happening here. The NFL Sunday Ticket is losing thousands of subscribers. Now, that money's already been paid, so it's not like it's coming out of the NFL's pocket, but it's coming out of DirecTV's pocket. And certainly the money right now on television rating is not coming out of NFL's pocket, but the NFL is going to eventually have to go back and try to redo its television deals. And I think there's a good chance here. I think there is a very good chance that what's happening is the NFL is getting Dixie chicked. All right? They are going to have a real issue with their predominantly conservative audience and their reaction to how the national anthems are going. This is a profound disconnect, guys. It's just like the Dixie Chicks. Remember when the Dixie Chicks stood up? Their audience was conservative. They were the talent that made money off the conservative audience. When they created that disconnect between their audience and their music, they died as a brand. The talent on the field is liberal, that's protesting. The crowd that's paying their salary is conservative. The talent thinks that the money's always going to be there, but once you alienate your base takes its money back. And that, my friends, is really bad for the NFL. The NFL is in really difficult situations here because the NFL directly is not going to get necessarily the punishment now. But NFL ratings this year are down 11%. Markets always win. Look at what happened to Mizzou. Liberals like to go on Twitter and social media and stuff and complain, but they don't really stick to it. Look at what happened to Missouri. The university almost died based on its response, inadequate response, and failure to respond to protesters on campus. The University of Missouri is down like nearly half in enrollment since that incident happened. Why can the same thing not happen to the NFL? Why can the NFL's audience not diminish by 35% over the course of this year? If that happened, what would the NFL do? Can the NFL respond in any way to bring back the audience that they're losing? I'm going to talk about this on tomorrow's show in a great deal. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, but I think the NFL is in real danger of getting Dixie chicked here. And I'm going to tell you all about it tomorrow. We'll continue to unpack it. If you're not listening to the radio show and subscribe to the podcast, I'd encourage you to do that. Go download the podcast, Outkick the Coverage. Great show this morning. We'll talk about it from 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. Thursday, I'll have Jeff Schwartz on. We'll get you ready for the NFL. My guy Todd Furman will come on to talk about gambling. And we'll have a little bit of baseball talk even, really. So I'm Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. I appreciate all of you coming to watch us. Most dominant weeks and months that Outkick has ever had. I appreciate all of your support. Thank you for being a part of the Outkick Army. Update on the Senate campaign as I'm continuing to figure out all of the details. I will be figuring it all out, trust me, and we're just making sure that we take care of everything. I love you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Don't be a pussy. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on Outkick the Coverage.